With 19 wins, Petty Enterprises set the gold standard for Martinsville success. However, after Sunday, Hendrick Motorsports is threatening to eclipse their mark. We'll break it down next.
You got to do everything right when you come to Martinsville. There's not much question about that. Everybody tightening the seat belts. Fans are standing on their feet, want to see this finish here at Martinsville. Look out, here goes Denny Hamlin immediately diving under Jimmy Johnson.
What a move by Denny Hamlin, and it's going to give Denny Hamlin the lead out of turn 4. It's Hamlin and Johnson, 1 and 2. All the leaders tangle. Johnson to the inside of Hamlin. He bangs it. They both save it, and Jimmy Johnson takes the lead with the bump and run in turn 3.
The Hendrick domination continues at Martinsville Speedway as Jimmy Johnson wins for the 6th time here at Martinsville.
And another impressive run for Jimmy Johnson. He wasn't quite as dominant as he was back in the fall, but he did come away with the trophy once again, beating back the challenges, and they were challenges from Denny Hamlin. Also, Tony Stewart, a good run for him, 3rd, and Jeff Gordon came up a little bit short. Was pretty strong early, but he was 4th, and Clint Bowyer, another strong run, rounding out the top 5. We'll have all of the details coming up. Hello, everyone, and welcome to NASCAR Now. I'm Mike Massaro, along with 3-time championship crew chief Ray Evernham, a guy who has made over 500 starts in the Truck Series, Nationwide Series, and Sprint Cup Series combined, Mike Wallace, and 1995 Sprint Cup Series Rookie of the Year, Ricky Craven, and, well, Jimmy Johnson getting to victory lane. No one's surprised, but 6 grandfather trophies? Got to be a loud house. I mean, when you get that many trophies, I'd imagine you start giving them away. You won there.
I did.
What'd you do with your trophy?
You know, it was a big win for me. I gave my trophy or clock to Mike Beam. I felt like he deserved it for helping me win that first race.
Well, then Ray, you must have quite a few clocks in your house somewhere, right? I mean, I'm sure Jimmy Johnson won, Jeff Gordon won 6 of them, don't you?
No, you know, I just text Jeff because he said in the media that he gave some of the crew chiefs, but I didn't get one. So my address is still the same, Jeff, if you want to send that over.
He's got a few, and probably a pretty loud house at the hour. That's for sure. Hey, let's take a look at how Jimmy Johnson got to victory lane, shall we? It was a busy day on pit road, an interesting choice of pit selection, Rick.
Yeah, Chad Knauss's thought process was to get in early and get clear and save more time avoiding traffic exiting pit road.
And they needed to spend quite a bit of time on pit road because that car was not great at the beginning, but they adjusted and adjusted and finally got the car better. The team over the wall was pretty good too, Mike.
Well, that's why they call it a team. You know, he got in, they pitted the car quickly, he got off, and got him the lead. That was the determining factor of the race right there.
Yeah, and a lot of people probably thought he was going to run away with it, but Denny Hamlin had other ideas here, Ricky, as he dove to the bottom of the turn.
That was amazing. That surprised everybody, but nobody more than Jimmy Johnson. Johnson gained his composure, got ready to make a run back at it.
Yeah, and it was a run. Here's the winning move, big one. Gets into the quarter panel, opens up that inside lane for himself, and scoots on by, and believe me, he was trying to drive away, I'm sure. Didn't want Denny to get to his rear bumper. Jimmy Johnson picks up his 6th Martinsville victory and was completely unapologetic.
He got me on a great restart. I didn't think that he could pass me going into turn 1 and out-accelerate me like that, and he did, and I was pretty frustrated with myself and had to relax and kind of get back into my rhythm, and just kept working away at the little margin he had on me and trying to set up an opportunity for me to get inside of him in a braking zone. That chance came together down the back straightaway. I pulled inside of him, and as I committed with my speed to the inside line, he was trying to crowd me down to the bottom to protect the lead, and we touched, and at that point we're both along for the ride, and thankfully we both held on to the cars. There was a couple points where I thought I had spun out, and luckily we didn't. Luckily also we had enough gap between where we were to 3rd that we could recover and get going and not lose any more track position.
I didn't get to take a picture with Bodine 25 years ago, but we got to take one out there today with Jimmy, so it was a special day. You know, anytime you can win here, and it was a heck of a race, and it's a really neat to be able to win one to celebrate the 25th.
Everybody was kind of counting us out just a little bit because we haven't had the finishes that we really deserved for the year. We've been running very competitive, but unfortunately we haven't gotten the finishes that we needed, and I think everybody realizes hopefully now at this point that, you know, we're as strong as ever. If you look at it, after this weekend, we're probably real close to the same in points, but I think performance-wise, we're a lot further ahead than where we were last year. I think our intermediate program's a lot better off. I think our super speedway program's a lot better off. Our short track program, obviously, if you look at today, is still solid. So I think that everybody's running really well, and I think that, you know, our pit stops have been pretty good. So we're pretty excited, better off than we were last year.
Maybe if I look back and I use my head, maybe I don't pass him on that restart. Maybe I just do the same thing he did, ride behind him till about 10 to go, put the move on him, and make sure that we get the win. But, you know, I saw an opportunity on the restart to take the lead, and I felt like that was the best place to be because I thought I was going to be able to pull away from him once I did get out front. But our car didn't come in very good on a restart, and he was able to stick with me. So, you know, definitely if we get that chance, you know, and I feel like we will, it'll be in a chase race, and hopefully it'll pay bigger dividends then than it does now.
It'll definitely pay bigger dividends if he does get that victory coming in the fall in the chase. Now let's take a look at Jimmie Johnson's numbers at Martinsville. He's been incredible there. The three-time series champ has owned that track of late over the last 9 Cup races. He ranks first in wins, average finish, and laps led. The win gave boss Rick Hendrick his 18th Martinsville victory, which is one shy of the mark set by Petty Enterprises all time. Now, let's talk about the impressive performance by the 48 team. No surprise they got to victory lane considering what they've been able to do at that track over the course of time. But what stands out about yesterday's performance?
Well, I don't think that they were good when they started, and Chad and Jimmy and the team decided to bring that car in early, make several pit stops, make some big changes, get the car good before halfway in the race so that when everybody else was trying to adjust their car was good, and all they had to do was worry about racing it.
And I'll take the driver's perspective and say, from Jimmie Johnson's standpoint, he did a fabulous job communicating what he needed. Chad Knaus is on an island if he doesn't get some good feedback saying, I need help here, here, and here. And at the end, they were the best car.
Why do you guys think that Chad's so good at adjusting as the race wears on?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the guy sitting to your right, Ray Everham. You know, we got to remember that Chad Knaus was brought up in the Ray Everham, Jeff Gordon era. I mean, he learned a lot from him. And we were talking earlier that you got to critique that driver in races. If you think you're good, you got to keep probing them. You got to keep asking them what they got to do, and that's what Chad does a great job of.
Are you willing to take that credit?
No, not at all. You know, you can only teach somebody as much as they're willing to learn. And you know, as I said, I love to be thought of as being that much of an example. But I can tell you that Chad is a guy who works, and he works very hard. And he's very systematic about what he does. And when he finds a weakness of his own, he works on it. And it's very scary for the rest of the competitors to hear them say that they're better than they were last year.
No, they are pretty good. You know, I mean, we're certainly going to talk about the way they improved that car as the race went on, but, you know, the people are all going to talk about the winning pass.
It was a great pass, wasn't it? I mean,
I thought so.
It was a Martinsville pass, typical short track day. I mean, went down the corner, Jimmie Johnson got in there. Denny gave him a hole. He gave him an opening, and they both did a great job of holding on to it. I think it made for a great race. Look at that thing. It's sideways, totally, both of them, and goes on and wins the race.
And I'll tell you, the guy who was most disappointed was Tony Stewart because he's thinking, I taught those guys too much about dirt racing. I shouldn't have taught them that much.
I got to admit, I was sitting there thinking, they're going to wreck each other. Tony Stewart's going to win. What do you think? Clean pass?
Well, whether it's clean or not doesn't matter because Denny admitted he would have done the same thing. But I want to just focus on how that happened. And it happened because Denny Hamlin had to become defensive when Jimmie Johnson got within a car length or two. He had to start closing his exit and closing his entry, and he slowed down. Jimmy got a run through the middle, got enough of a run so that he saw daylight getting into the corner. Any driver with 15 to go at Martinsville and a chance to fill that hole is going to fill it. Or they better drive out of the tunnel and go all the way home.
You know, and we all heard Denny Hamlin's post-race comments, not necessarily what we just aired, but we heard after the broadcast how honored he was to be on the same racetrack with Jimmy and Jeff and Tony. But it seemed to me like there was a little bit of a tone there that payback might be coming. What do you think?
I don't know about payback, but I think he was just letting them know, hey, look, this time, and these guys will tell you, you know when it's 80%, 20%, and Jimmy had a better car. You know, he ran Denny down. Denny's car was very good middle off, but Jimmy was good getting in, and they got together. And I think Denny was just saying, hey, that was good one, pal, but next time she was going to be on the other foot.
It's good. It's good. Great talk, great fodder, but you know what? He's got to allow Jimmy to give him that opportunity. Jimmy next time might set sail earlier.
Yeah, Jimmy's not going to let him get to his rear bumper. I can tell you that. Jimmy's going to go, oh, remember what he said at Martinsville?
Right.
Not going to let him get there.
He had plenty of incentive to kind of pull away from the field there. And, you know, one thing that also stands out, I think back a week earlier in Bristol, Denny said in his post-race press conference, he was asked if he could have gotten to Kyle Busch's bumper on that particular day, would he have moved him? And without hesitation, Denny said, absolutely. And then he said, well, Kyle's just won too much.
Mike, why would you not move somebody? Move them, not wreck them, just move them a little bit, because you know what? Jimmy Johnson is the headlines of the day. He's got the trophy. He's got everything, Ricky.
I want to speak one thing about Jimmy Johnson. We've all talked over the last 18, 24 months about how Jimmy Johnson wins and wins titles without being a bad guy, without moving guys out of the way. This is interesting, but it may be changing.
And it's fun to watch. It definitely is fun to watch. Now, you've all heard what our panel of experts had to say, but we want to get your opinion as well, especially on Jimmy Johnson. And looking at the big picture, we want to know, do you think he can win his 4th consecutive Sprint Cup Series championship? You can log on to ESPN.com, go to the NASCAR section, and submit your vote. Still, plenty to come here. Up under the hood, do meetings equal results? Well, when Rick Hendrick calls them, they usually do. The post-meeting with the 88 team, still to come. It was a wild Sunday for the wild thing, Kyle Busch. How the Bristol winner failed at Martinsville and what was to blame. And remember, when the 17 of Matt Kenseth was doing all the right things, well, things have changed quite a bit since Daytona. We'll talk about that next on the Monday Roundtable.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Energizer Ultimate Lithium. Keep going. And State Farm, where great coverage meets great rates. Call, click, or visit and start saving today.
Let's take a look at Jeff Gordon's day at Martinsville. He started on the pole and looked pretty strong early, at least for the first 43 laps where he was the leader, and then, of course, came around the pit stops, and the car started to go away a little bit here, Rick.
I don't think that Jeff and Steven did as good a job as they wanted to keeping up with the changes in the track. The good news is they're better than they were last year.
And Denny Hamlin got by him, but later in the race, it seemed like they did improve. Car got a little bit better, and he returned the favor, was able to slip underneath Denny Hamlin toward the end of the race, about lap 346. Lap 429, leaders come to pit road. Gordon's last chance to improve upon that car. They made it a little bit better. Comes out 5th, and he ends up 4th on the day.
It's great to run in top 5s, but if we're going to contend for the championship, especially in those final 10 races, you know, we got to start winning races. And I mean, I'm not really concerned with the streak of how many wins we haven't had in a row. I'm more concerned with, you know, what we got to do this year to win races and win this championship. And you certainly don't want to get that 48 any momentum, but you know, I know that we're capable of winning. We got a team capable of it. And Friday threw us off. You know, we just thought we were going to be a lot better than we were today. Well, the funny thing is that we seem to be better on the 1.5 miles right now than we are on the short track. So I'm actually really looking forward to going to Texas and seeing how good the setup that we've been running at the other 1.5 miles, it's worked so well that you know, we almost won it, and see what we can do at Texas. So I'm not concerned about Texas. A little more concerned about the fact that we didn't run better here today at Martinsville.
And, of course, Jeff Gordon's still looking for his first Texas win. You heard him talk a little bit about his streak. Well, he now has not won in the last 47 races. And you alluded to it a little bit there, Ray, about them being able to keep up with the racetrack. They've done a lot better this year, but still there's room for improvement. Where?
Well, communication, as we talked about last year, communication between Steven and Jeff, so what Jeff needs in the car. And this year, you know, they went into Martinsville, didn't get a lot of practice, made some changes, and they didn't maybe really read that racetrack change as good as Chad Knaus or some of the other crew chiefs did. But as I said, the good news is they're getting better, and they've just got to, like Jeff said, they've just got to continue to progress until they're winning races in the chase, because it's going to take race wins in that chase to win this championship.
Absolutely.
But Ray, when you're that good for the first 100 laps, sometimes aren't you penalized for being so fast? In other words, how do you draw from a driver? How do you challenge them? And nobody's better than you at challenging a driver. How do you challenge a driver that's driving away from the second place car?
Well, but you're driving away from the second place car. You're out there in clean air. You're watching your lap times. You go back historically and say, now look, this place is going to change at 150 laps. And you're looking back. There's a guy maybe running 4th or 5th that's running a 10th or 2/10 of a second faster. And you say, okay, if that thing's so great, this guy's in 5th and he's coming.
And Mike and I can't see that.
So what do? Do you in Jeff Gordon's situation, when you were his crew chief, did you go, okay, Jeff, you're good, but there's somebody better. Where can I help you at? Are you asking him that? Are you pushing him like entry, center, exit? What do we need to do?
Well, if you're saying the car's great, you say, okay, look, if it's great, how come you're not going faster? What do you need to go faster? Because it is going to change. Tell me as that thing went on, was it good for 10 laps? Was it good for 20 laps? Was it for 50 laps? So you feel like you're using the right rear? Are you running it hard enough to wear your brakes out? What do you need to go faster? Because we are going to have to get faster.
Okay, I'll buy that. For a moment there, I thought when he asked you that question that you were telling Jeff how to get into the corner. I know that doesn't work.
No, you watch the race. I'm good getting in. I run out of talent on exit.
Well, there's all kinds of things we could talk about when it comes to Jeff Gordon, but another notable on the day at Martinsville, Tony Stewart. I mean, there were a lot of unknowns about him and his organization coming into 2009. Well, he answered some of those questions on Sunday afternoon. A very strong run for the 14 cars. He slips by Clint Bowyer early on and moves up in the grid. Lap 170, he passes Jeff Gordon, the guy we just talked about, for second. And it looked at the time like, wow, well, maybe the 14 can compete for this win here. Lap 245, nearing the halfway point. Stewart starts to fall back, though, as Dale Jr. passes him for fourth. The closing laps, lap 425, Stewart again on the move, passing Jeff Gordon, moving back into the top 5, ended up finishing third on the day.
We struggled in one part of the corner. We struggled getting it to rotate right past the center, and that was pretty much what we fought. I would say 2/3 of the Friday practice, and then that's what we fought the majority of the day today. You know, that's where I could really see Denny's car and Jeff's car and Jimmy's car were really good in that area, and that's something that I know you got to be good at. But you know, to work with a different crew chief and a different package and end up like we did, you know, I felt like Darian made good calls. I mean, there were times during the race he was making changes that I questioned, but they were better and made the car work. And he's really good. And the thing is, he's very sure of himself. He's very sure of his decisions. And it's more just me being patient and sitting back and trusting him doing his job and not second guessing him. And that's something that I haven't really done. But there's times when I'm like, you know, I think one thing and he's thinking something else. And you know, so the good thing's just kind of to be able to have that trust in him to even though you question it, you accept it and you go out and you're like, wow, it did help my car in the way I wanted. So, you know, that part's kind of fun learning about him.
And let's take a look at some of the other notable days in Martinsville. Clint Bowyer, another solid run, came in third in the standings, started third, and ran up front most of the day and came away second in the standings. He's got to be feeling pretty good about the way 2009 is unfolding so far. Ryan Newman, another guy racing for Stewart Haas, and well, hasn't had a breakout race yet, but yesterday wasn't too bad. Started 27th, raced toward the front, stayed out of trouble, and finished 6th. Jumped up to 18th in the standings, and has now posted back-to-back top 10 finishes. Pretty good run for Ryan Newman. Mark Martin, still looking to turn things around, has had a couple of poles the last few weeks, but really no finishes to speak of. That will turn around here in Martinsville. Started 31st, had a good showing, ran out front most of the day, and finished 7th. Good, solid top 10 run for Mark Martin. And a lot of people have to feel pretty good about that. Now, the Hendrick Motorsports teams have been in the news most of the week. Now, of course, we talked all about them yesterday because it was the 25th anniversary of Hendrick Motorsports' first win in Martinsville, and, well, they got yet another victory. But one guy everyone is talking about right now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. This past week, leading into Martinsville, there was reportedly a 3-hour meeting with the key players in the 88 team to try to remedy the situation right now. Now, I know that Ray and Rick, you've been a part of Hendrick Motorsports. How do you think that meeting came about, and what role do you think Rick played?
Well, Rick, you know, we talked about this a while ago, but when Rick holds a meeting like that, you listen, and
I bet.
You know, he commands respect because of who he is, but he has a way of identifying what the strengths and weaknesses are and what you have to work on. Mm-hmm. And Rick, I will tell you that Rick got everybody together and in a way that didn't make anybody mad, said, look, guys, let me tell you how it's going to be. And when he says that, you listen.
Did he slap his hands just like that? This is how it's going to be, boys?
Based on experience, and Ray, I think you'll remember this, that we had a meeting after finishing 1, 2, 3 in the Daytona 500.
Pretty good day.
And Rick is a gentleman. He's sincere. We all know that. What you see is what you get. But let me tell you something. He gets his point across. Ray, tell me if you remember this. We finished 1, 2, 3 in the Daytona 500. Rick congratulates us. And then at the end, before we all got up to leave, he said, but there's one more thing. You all qualified pretty poorly. That won't happen again. And he meant it.
Talk about being a perfectionist.
Well, I don't know if it's a perfectionist, but he designs to win. And you know, people always talk about Hendrick Motorsports, and that is really Rick Hendrick. He has an ability to make you want to work hard for him for a reason and listen to what he says. He can give you critique without offending you and give you the motivation to do what he's asking you to do.
And he may be just the thing that Dale Earnhardt Jr. needs after the performance in Bristol a couple of weeks ago. He was his biggest cheerleader. He was there to encourage him after the race. Let's take a look at how that meeting translated to the racetrack for Dale Earnhardt Jr. A pretty good day, I would say. Ran toward the front most of the afternoon. Had a pretty good run up there. Lap 70, got into Scott Speed at one point, but other than that, it was pretty good. And he came home with a solid top 5 finish.
Well, it's all right. We didn't have as good a car as I wanted to have, and we worked on it all day, and the guys stayed positive. And just right there at the end, we just weren't as good as we needed to be. We were a pretty good car all day, and we made some adjustments near the end that weren't helping the car, and we weren't able to finish where we should have. We were a top 5 car most of the day, I thought. So kind of unfortunate. I'm not real happy about their finish.
We had a pretty good day. I mean, starting where we were and to go up there and get close to leading the race. I mean, I think overall it was a good confidence builder for the teams, and you know, we're just that's what we got to do right now. We got to get points and be confident with the team and get our season turned around. And definitely, this is the best one we had so far this year. So you know, look forward to getting Texas.
This is excellent equipment, and we just got to know what to do with it. We got to get a little bit better as a team to compete, and the stuff's right there in front of us, man. We just got to figure out what to do to make it work.
Did I say top 5 finish? I meant to say top 10. Still pretty good for Dale Earnhardt Jr. Lots of improvement in this particular race. Now, question whether or not it was the meeting or just the fact that it was Martinsville. Hendrick's always been pretty good there, and you know, you can see the numbers here. Dale Earnhardt Jr. Season hasn't been exactly what he has been looking for, but it is improving, or at least there's reason for optimism after Martinsville. Coming up, short tracks, and the boys from Roush Fenway Racing have not mixed well the past couple weeks. Our breakdown of the Roush Fenway Racing is next. Kyle Busch came into the race as one of the favorites, fresh off a dominant run in Bristol. Looking to back that up at another short track, but the day got off to a very bad start. He gets into the side of Scott Speed after spinning out, and things didn't get much better from there. Had a tire go down, ended up in the wall, ended up with a very disappointing finish, and none too happy about it afterwards either. And Kyle Busch, I think we all expected a little bit more in Martinsville. What do you think went wrong?
All right. They talked all day about the new brakes that Denny Hamlin had on. So they were good for Denny. They might have been a little bit of a problem with Kyle. You know, brakes are very, very driver sensitive, and it looked like had a little bit too much rear brake, spun, got into the Scott Speed car, then maybe put a little bit more front brake in it to make the car handle better, overheated the right front tire, and blew the bead out and caused a flat. So brakes might have been his issue. Any theories?
Drivers have favorite tracks and not so favorite tracks, and sometimes as a consequence, if it's a not so favorite track, you try too hard. And I honestly believe that Kyle Busch tried a little hard this weekend.
Well, I honestly believe it blames on Tony Stewart. He's invited everybody to Eldora for the last couple of years.
Tony Stewart's fault.
Tony Stewart.
He got loose. He was looking for the cushion, and there wasn't one at Martinsville.
Scott Speed was.
And Scott Speed was a cushion. You've always heard 8 tires will stick better than 4.
I was going to say there was a cushion for Jimmy Johnson.
So
you know, and this has been a track. If you look at Kyle's statistics over the year, where he's not let the world on fire. He's been pretty inconsistent there. I mean, are there tracks you mentioned? There's tracks that sometimes you like, sometimes you don't like. Are there tracks that just don't lend themselves to your style?
Well, whether they do or not, sometimes it gets in your head. And every track requires a certain discipline. So you go into Martinsville and statistically it hadn't been that good for you. And you say, well, I'm going to go out and I want to practice with Jimmy Johnson or Jeff Gordon. You make a 10, 20, 30 lap run. You come in and you say, hey, we were as good as they were, you know. And maybe you come back the next day for the race and you try like you're Jimmy Johnson or Jeff Gordon at that track. My point is this. I think that you can burn up the tires, the brakes, or both very quickly at Martinsville based on experience. I don't know if he did either of those things, but I do think he tried too hard.
And you mentioned brakes. They did run a new brake system. Didn't have a heck of a lot of practice time to dial that brake system in. That may have also been a factor, but who knows. There'll be better days for Kyle Busch, that's for sure. There'll be better days for Roush Fenway Racing as well. Kind of rough day across the board for them. Jamie McMurray, 26, had the best finish for Roush Fenway Racing. He finished 10th, but that was their highlight. Things didn't get much better from there. Carl Edwards, the guy who has been the poster boy for Roush Fenway, well, he was the guy who's supposed to be winning all these races this year. So far, that has not been the case. The 99 struggled on lap 256, dropped a lug nut on pit road, had a tough time recovering from that. Lost several spots, and you know, it was kind of rough on the racetrack too. Had a tire go down there, Ray, and we saw a lot of those on Sunday.
Yeah, the tire went down because of the pit road incident, put him in traffic, and it was actually the splitter on the 99 car back in heavy traffic that gave him a flat.
Greg Biffle didn't have a much better day either. He ended up 16th on the day. Actually, I should say started 16th. 16, finished 28th. My notes are all mixed up today. I don't.
We did that on purpose.
You know, in some ways, there's no difference between 16th and 28th.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you know, he wants to forget about it nonetheless. David Reagan, another disappointing day there. He finished 27th. Those notes are correct there. And well, Matt Kenseth, man, a rough day. What happens here? We saw the spot shadow on the tire.
Technically, that tire was not under control when it left it coming around the car. So NASCAR had to make a call. They made a black and white call on rule, and it in my opinion, the right call.
They said we had a tire that we didn't have control of when it left our right rear and came back towards the wall. He never told me I had to come in. He looked at me and said, you need to control your tires. And I assumed that meant, hey, this is your warning. It looked like it was questionable, so I went about my business. And the next thing I know, it went green, and we had to come in and sort of pass through. I guess I should have asked him and should have talked to him and made sure we could serve our penalty under caution so it wouldn't hurt us. And from there, we were down a lap the rest of the day, and we had to really struggle to get back. Yeah. I didn't see the tire. I went and asked my guys what happened. The jack man said the 48 was getting ready to hit me, so I sent it. And my rear tire carrier said he grabbed and got it over there. The official behind us in the 48 stall is actually the one that said it got away from us. So I haven't seen it yet.
And let's take a look at how things have changed now for Matt Kenseth since the beginning of the year. He opened up with back-to-back victories in the Daytona 500 and again at the Auto Club Speedway out in California. Things have dropped off significantly. That graph kind of looks like my portfolio, guys. How about you? Dropped off. It's at the bottom. Things can only get better for Matt Kenseth. Still trying to stay in a chase qualifying position. Let's talk a little bit about that pit road incident. Certainly it looked like they breached the rule. It was a broken rule. They weren't in control of the tire. But, you know, Drew says that it was a miscommunication. You know, he didn't get the penalty assessment from the NASCAR official in time for him to abide by it. It's a confusing situation. Can you clear it up for me?
Well, the rule is the rule. You are supposed to have control of that tire. You're not allowed to just roll the tire back. You've got to have some control of it, I think, until you get halfway, you know, behind the car. Whether or not he was told by the official, I don't know. I can't comment on that. Now, if he wasn't and there was no penalty flag thrown, then he's got a beef. But NASCAR made the right call, black and white technical. They broke the rule.
You know, why did that official have to call it black and white, though, Ray? He could have left it go. It was, you know, that tire didn't get away. It affected the outcome of the 17 car. And Mike, he only won Daytona in California, so he started high, you know.
But, he did start high. Mike, you know, we give NASCAR a hard time about not being consistent enough with the rules. And lately, I have seen consistency from them. They enforce the rules, and it seems consistent to me.
And you can probably appreciate this. I've said this before, Mike. You've heard me say it before. Drivers despise pit road. They want to settle this thing on the racetrack. How do you think Matt Kenseth is feeling when he comes in and leaves, and then he's down a lap and has no idea what he did wrong?
Well, from it, you know, and Ray knows as a crew chief, a driver's side, it's like, I didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
You know, and you sit and you know there's rules and you know there's penalties, but you look at NASCAR and you go, Come on, guys. Why didn't you just tell me to fall all the way to the tail end of the line once we went back green?
Sounds like a driver, doesn't it?
You know, and let me start racing again. Why do you have to ruin my day?
I can relate to that.
I didn't throw a tire out in front of anybody.
Yeah. Except if the guy in front of you does, then you go, how come they didn't put him to the back?
Oh, so that's where the rules come from. I got it, yeah.
Well, you know, he wasn't the only Roush Fenway driver who had a rough day. Carl Edwards. I mean, everybody was talking about the 99 as being the preseason favorite coming into this race, or coming into the season, I should say. But yesterday's race, yet another struggle for the 99 team. What do they need to do to get back to the form that they had at the conclusion of 2008?
I think they had a decent car, but again, another pit road mistake. Put them back in the pack to where he was in heavy traffic and got up against the 99 car and cut his left rear tire down. I don't think Carl was that bad. Probably had a top 5, top 10 car, but got to stop the pit road mistakes.
You know what's going to happen there, Ray? You remember how you're talking about Rick Hendrick, how he kind of slaps his hands down on the table and says, this is how it's going to be? Jack Roush is going, boys, fix the pit stops.
Yeah.
I'm not going to deal with it anymore. We got fast cars. We're not going to have these pit stops going on and off like we're having.
And something else I said over and over and over is it's so very hard to win these races. Despite what you've seen from Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus, or Ray Evernham and Jeff Gordon years ago, it's hard to win these races because there's more ways to lose it than there are to win it. And we just saw one way to lose a race. Guy gets in your left rear, cut your tire down under green, you're 3 laps down.
Yeah. Circumstances. Was it you that said circumstances?
That's
are the
the
key
2 to
the
1.
sport?
You can't. That's the part that you can't control, and there is just a part of that. But unfortunately, now again, going back to that, they could control that. A pit road mistake put that car in position to get its tire cut down.
And another part of the equation this week, brakes. And you know, every time we go to Martinsville, we talk a little bit about brakes, and it wasn't necessarily brake failures that were causing the problems, but melted beads. Eric Almirola was a victim of it several times, had several right front tires go down, and I think he brought out 4 cautions all by himself. A very rough day for the 8 car. Here again, another tire problem, and he has an explanation for that. Coming down pit road, and here's a spin by Almirola. Just not his day. Ray Evernham taped something for us earlier.
When we told you how important the brakes were going to be at Martinsville, little did we know how important they were going to be to some guys. Brake technology has come so far in the last 2 to 3 years that there were no problems with the brakes per se. Now the problem came because the brakes worked so good they created a lot of heat. The only way to cool those brakes is through these hoses and this opening. NASCAR limits the size of that opening and the size of these 3 hoses that you can have. As that brake temperature built up, it transfers heat to the steel wheel. The steel wheel transfers heat into the tire. There's a metal cable running through this tire that got so hot, it actually melted the rubber away and let the air out of the tire. So even with all this new brake technology, the drivers still can't use them because it's limited by the ability to cool them.
And let's take a look at the standings now. Jeff Gordon still on top with an 89-point advantage. Clint Bowyer, what a great story. A lot of people had no idea what to expect out of him when he was reassigned to the 33 team, and well, he has done nothing but put up the numbers. He's second in the standings. Kurt Busch, a revival there. He's third. Jimmy Johnson up to 4th and threatening to retake his spot at the top of the standings. Who knows? He's pretty good at Texas. He could make some more jumps as well. Still, lots of information and stories to come here on the show. We mentioned Clint Bowyer. He's been the surprise of the season so far. We'll talk about Bowyer when we come back here on the Roundtable.
This racetrack has hosted NASCAR Sprint Cup Series races every year since the division's inception in 1949.
Good luck today, buddy. Get that clock.
Win this on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Win this! Nobody better around here than you, man. You know how it takes, what it takes to win.
Green flag goes in the air, and Jeff Gordon and Kurt Busch going to race down to turn number 1.
Turn really good to the middle on cold tires. Now as I get going there, it stops turning. Oh, real good, though. Slides the nose through the center just a little bit, but it's better. We'll keep tuning on it.
Right now is the time you just got to keep your fenders on, and you're doing great.
They're seeming content just to kind of make some laps out there. Nobody really shoving everybody around at this stage of the race. We'll get to that before it's over, that's for sure.
Sort of getting a little tight in the center, Mike. Having to check up, use the brake a little bit before gas on exit.
10-4, I'm watching the brakes. Everything looks good. Denny Hamlin doing everything he can right now. Banging on each other. The patience for the moment has been checked at the door. I have to let him go here, because if he touches me again, I'm going to freaking knock his head off. Nice and smooth and drive away from him. We
frustrating thing in the world to think that we're better than what we are.
Okay, I'm the car owner, Greg. You listen to me. Let's just drive this thing. Everyone's trying.
Haul my ass up to the middle, and I had to heat everything up right there doing all this stupid racing.
I don't know what I need. I suck. I can't get off the corner.
Trouble, turn 4, getting turned around. Kyle Busch is smoking it.
Caution down, ease it back, ease it back.
The jungle out there.
Jimmy Johnson is going to be the first off of pit road in front of Denny Hamlin.
Good stuff, boys.
Everybody tightening the seat belts. Fans are standing on their feet, want to see this finish.
Be ready. Green flag.
Look out, here goes Denny Hamlin immediately diving under Jimmy Johnson.
That was a big boy move to grab the lead away from Jimmy Johnson by Denny Hamlin.
Clear, clear, clear. Down a boy. All right, bud, you can get it back. You can get it back.
Johnson to the inside of Hamlin. He bangs it, and Jimmy Johnson takes the lead with the bump and run in turn 3.
Great job. I know you're mad, but be smart about this. You just saw he won.
The Hendrick domination continues at Martinsville Speedway as Jimmy Johnson wins.
Thank you, thank you. I wanted that one. I want that one pretty bad.
I was doing anything I could to get that one for you.
It was fun to watch. To make room for the addition of Casey Mears, Clint Bowyer was reassigned within the RCR organization to a new team with a new crew chief. To say there was an air of uncertainty surrounding Bowyer would be an understatement. No one knew what to expect. Many thought Bowyer got a raw deal. Still, he never complained. And as Marty Smith explained, so far he's doing all his talking with the scoreboard.
For Clint Bowyer, the 2009 Sprint Cup season brought a new team and a million unknowns, and equally as many doubters. Would it really work, and could he really get it done? He's now 2 months into life with that new team, the number 33 Chevrolet. Bowyer is second in the standings, happier than he's been in quite some time. And oh yeah, the doubters are silent.
I've went from a top 10 driver to, a top 5 driver. And what I feel like is a threat. Change isn't always a bad thing. I think you change and, you're scared to death to do it. I was scared to death to make that change. And when it happened, it was like, a whole light switch came on and it's just been effortless.
Through the season's first 6 races, Bowyer has 3 top 5 finishes. A testament, he says, to the team crew chief Shane Wilson built. A hodgepodge of Richard Childress Racing veterans, and some made available through industry-wide off-season layoffs.
They've done incredibly well. They've been our strongest team right off the box, right out of the bat, coming to the races, and that says an awful lot. This is a pretty solid company. We're not always where we need to be, but we're pretty good. And to lead this group means a lot, and they've been leading this group. I mean, they've outrun us pretty much every week. They've been incredible. It's it's no surprise to me. I mean, if anybody thinks Clint Bowyer can't drive a race car, it's crazy.
The thing that most excites me about our team is we're running in that top 5. Used to be I'd run in the top 10. And that was something that I always said. Over the last 2 years, I got to get to where I can run in the top 5 and compete for wins. We're starting to do that. We just have that momentum. I really truly believe when we hit our stride, we're going to be even better.
Burton made no mistake. Bowyer is currently the standard at RCR. When told so, Bowyer chuckled and said, "When you're running good, it's easy. When you're not, it's the hardest you've ever worked and the most misery you've ever been through. That's racing. It'll show you the highest highs and drag you down to the lowest lows. And that could come next week." In Welcome, North Carolina, Marty Smith, ESPN.
And let's take a look at some of Clint Bowyer's numbers so far compared to a year ago. 3 top 5 finishes as opposed to just 1 at this stage of last year, so obviously a pretty large improvement there. Average finish much better as well, 8.2, and look where he's ranked in the points. I think that's the most impressive part, 2nd right now, and looking like a championship threat. Wow, what a story, that's for sure. And what kind of message do you think Clint Bowyer is sending right now with the way he has dealt with the situation he was handed and the way he's performed so far in 2009?
I don't know about the message, but the 2 words that were left out of that little piece right there were Shane Wilson, a veteran crew chief that you've not heard a lot about, but you'll hear a lot more as the season goes on.
Well, Ray, you know, I had the pleasure to drive for Shane Wilson RCR at Talladega last year. It was kind of the building of this 33 team. We went down there, qualified 6th, run 2nd, had tire failure. Shane Wilson's very methodical. You know, he was with Brendan Gaughan when he won all those truck races. Shane's got it going on, and you know, Clint Bowyer come off of being a championship nationwide driver, making the chase last year. I mean, he's got it going on. So right now it's all gelling.
But the transition for driver crew chief normally takes weeks, maybe months. This happened quick. These guys are obviously speaking the same language, and I'm going to just leave it with this, guys. You got to assume they're going to get better, right? Mm-hmm. Well, based on where they stand today, that's quite a statement.
Yeah, and you know what? From where they stand today, there's not much room for improvement. Point. They're second in the standings, and the only guy in front of them, well, he's got 4 championships. That's Jeff Gordon. Coming up next on the show, we'll talk a little bit about Texas, and this guy's done a few backflips there in Fort Worth. 3 wins at Texas. Can Carl Edwards get the first victory of 2009? Coming up in Texas on Saturday, we've got coverage of the Nationwide Series race. Make sure you tune in. Tony Stewart will be the in-race reporter. That, of course, Saturday, 2:30 Eastern on ESPN2.
Carl Edwards has had revolvers today. Everybody else has had rubber bands.
Carl Edwards dominates in Texas.
Carl Edwards wins the Samsung 500 at Texas Motor Speedway.
Good job, guys.
And Carl Edwards certainly has been very good at Texas. 3 career wins there, including the last 2 races at that 1.5-mile racetrack. And, well, Jeff Gordon's got 6 top 5s. He's been pretty solid, but still doesn't have a win at the Texas Motor Speedway. And Jimmy Johnson leads all drivers in average finish of 9.1. Let's talk a little bit about Texas now. Certainly we know it is fast. It is a competitive racetrack. Carl Edwards has been good there lately, but there had been parity at that racetrack up until Carl Edwards' last couple of years. Who do you like?
Oh, boy. Johnson, Gordon, Johnson.
Sort of like him yesterday on the show. He kind of picked
that Jeff. I'll take that Jeff Johnson guy.
Jeff Johnson, car 248, you know, but hey, you know who I think is going to be pretty good? I really do. If they keep everything in control, Kurt Busch. I mean, we looked at a dominant performance him and the Miller team had at Atlanta. I think he's got the capability of backing it up at Texas.
Yeah, and 1.5-mile tracks have been the team's strength the last, I would say, at least this year and the back end of last year as well. What do you think, Ricky?
The track starts super fast with a lot of grip. It ends with multiple lanes and sliding around. You got to have a high tolerance for sliding around. Carl Edwards has that. He's going to win again.
Yeah, and Roush Fenway has historically been pretty good at Texas Motor Speedway. Jeff Burton's been pretty good as well. It's going to be a pretty good race. It always is, and we're really looking forward to it on Sunday afternoon. Still ahead, Martinsville race weekend didn't end until today. Truck Series racing. We've got all the highlights coming up next here on the Monday Roundtable. The NHRA SummitRacing.com Nationals returns to ESPN2 this weekend with qualifying Saturday, 8 Eastern, and finals Sunday, 4 Eastern, all coming up from Las Vegas. And the Truck Series completed the Martinsville weekend. Kevin Harvick, well, he was the guy to watch for much of this race. Harvick there battling with, actually that's not Harvick, but that's Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch to the inside, taking the lead. Kyle Busch was a driver to watch for sure. And one truck getting out of shape, that's Todd Bodine, slaps the outside wall. And Kevin Harvick, as we mentioned, he was definitely one of the guys to watch. Kyle Busch on the outside of the 51 truck, making the move, but that's Kevin Harvick in the white truck slipping by on the inside. He'll take over the lead and battle Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch, a little bit of fender damage, tries to fix it on the inside retaining wall. At the same time, though, crossed the commitment line and was given a penalty. He would not be a factor from there on out. Kevin Harvick, meanwhile, though, was the factor. He took the lead, even though there were some late race cautions. Didn't slow him down. He finishes with the win. Kyle Busch does not go to victory lane for the first weekend in 2009. Instead, Kevin Harvick picks up the win. Kyle Busch, though, still your point leader. Todd Bodine, despite his problems, he's second in the standings. Ron Hornaday, he's third. Got snookered on a restart by Kevin Harvick late in that race, which was rather surprising. We'll talk about that in a moment. Mike Skinner fourth, and Matt Crafton wrapping up the top 5. And we'll talk a little bit more about Jimmie Johnson. We'll get your poll results coming up in NASCAR Now.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Aleve, all day strong, all day long. And Nationwide Insurance, official auto insurance partner of NASCAR.
Let's look at some of our lug notes, some news and notes from around NASCAR. Jimmie Johnson went from victory lane at Martinsville to a courtroom in Miami. He testified for the defense in the tax evasion trial of former Indy 500 winner Helio Castroneves. Johnson is a client of attorney Alan Miller, who is one of the co-defendants. Kansas Entertainment has resubmitted a bid for a casino that would be built outside of Turn 2 at Kansas Speedway. And this Sunday, the NASCAR Whelen Modified Series begins its 25th season with the Icebreaker at Thompson International Speedway. And we asked you earlier, we did a Sports Nation poll, whether or not you thought Jimmie Johnson could win a 4th consecutive title. And look at these numbers. 70% say no, 30% say yes. What does our expert panel say?
I say 2-to-1 odds. Maybe.
7-2, I don't think so.
On the fence.
Jimmie Johnson will win his 4th consecutive title, 3-to-1 odds.
And I say much, much too early to tell. Plenty of racing to go, but he does look good, that's for sure. His teammate looks good too. Jeff Gordon's still the point leader.